that dinner? Is it good? All right, great. So, while you guys are having dessert, we have a very special guest with us this evening. Big thanks to Yuka Yumisko here for the recommendation. And so our guest speaker, Getrude Matshe, is an inspirational speaker who has been described as a vibrant bundle of African energy whose zest and passion for life inspires everyone she meets. And I can say that in my meeting that's definitely true. She's passionate about helping people achieve their full potential and their individual life purpose. She's passionate about people's success. This makes her an energetic and inspirational and enlightening speaker. Getrude is what I would call a serial entrepreneur who's started companies across many industries. The IT sector, the medical sector, even the entertainment industry. Getrude is actually the owner of a talent agency who supplies ethnic extras for prominent movies such as Peter Jackson's King Kong and James Cameron's Avatar, which is amazing. She's also an active philanthropist. She's the founder and CEO of the Africa Alive Education Foundation, an organization that supports HIV orphans in Zimbabwe. She's formed Walk on the Wild Side Tours, a symbiotic tourism company that takes tourists to Zimbabwe to work with people with HIV. She is the mother of 3 children. She's a well-known African storyteller, poet, artist, and published author. Getrude is someone who's proved that anything is impossible. She has an incredible story. If you have a purpose, and we're very pleased to have her here this night, tonight at our Gala Awards dinner. Let's please welcome to the stage Getrude Matshe.
Thank you. It is an absolute honor to be here today. I first of all want to thank the force that brought me here. My full name is Getrude Ruadzano Munyaradzi Matshe. I did not want to challenge Michael with all my names, but I was born on one of the most fascinating continents in the world. Africa is a harsh continent, but it prepares you to live anywhere. Up until the 22nd of April 2001, I had not quite known what my life purpose was. It was 2 weeks before I launched my first book, and I woke up that morning with words in my head that had to go down on paper. And I went to my computer and I started writing. And I realized at that point that my voice, my body, my very being in this incarnation is merely a channel the Creator is using to awaken the world. A lot of people have asked me, Getrude, are you the typical African woman? I can tell you bluntly now that no, I am not. What I do know is that I was born to be her voice and the voice of her children. So let me tell you a little bit about the typical African woman. In my country, when I say my country, I refer to the continent of Africa, from north to south. The typical African woman is at the bottom of the food chain. The typical African woman is always the last to eat. Her role in society is to bear the children, fetch the water, fetch the firewood, make the fire, prepare the fields for sowing, sow the seed, and harvest. And in most situations, she does this single-handedly. And at the end of her exhausting day, she is the last to eat the leftovers of her prepared meals. In my country, the typical African woman is physically and psychologically abused. In times of war, she is raped, and she personifies the downtrodden human being. Now, while all this is happening to her, she asks you, where are you, my father, when my education is sacrificed? Where are you, my brother, when I toil in the field and in the kitchen? Where are you, my mother, when my genitals are cut from my body with a sharp knife? Where are you, my sister? Where are you, my aunt? It is your hands, your strength that pins me down. In times of war, when I am gang raped, sometimes by 5, 6, 10 men, where are you, my father, when I am violated? Where are you, my God? Where are you, my fellow human beings? Why do you allow this to happen to me? Now, because I'm not the typical African woman, I want to share with you today the spiritual journey that has been my life. I was born in a small village called Wedza, or the Eastern Highlands of Zimbabwe and Mozambique. It is the kind of place where you are born there, you will die there, you will amount to absolutely nothing. But I was blessed to be given two parents who realized that if they educated their children, we would get out of poverty. English is not my first language. My parents put me in private school at the age of 6. And then they taught me how to use my hands. I was taught to paint fabric, to sew, to knit. We would make crafts that we sold in all the white neighborhoods when Zimbabwe was still Rhodesia. My mother is the most amazing salesperson you will ever meet. She can sell snow to the Eskimos, sand to the Arabs of the desert, but she gave me skills. And at the age of 17, I became part of the Zimbabwe Association of Community Theaters. World Health came into our village one day. It was an AIDS awareness campaign. And they were dropping flyers and condoms to people who couldn't read, trying to conscientize people about the virus. And I watched the parents running and catching the papers. The next minute, they were lighting their fires. I watched the children blowing up the condoms and running around the village with balloons. And then they would run these workshops on how to prevent AIDS and how to use a condom. They would take a broomstick, put the condom on a broomstick. Every single hut in our village had a broomstick with a condom behind the door. So I wrote to World Health and I told them how ineffective their campaign was and that we passed down knowledge through stories. We did not have a written language. My mother was an amazing storyteller. My grandmother taught me everything I knew about telling stories. So I was part of the Zimbabwe Association of Community Theaters, and we were young political activists spreading political messages through plays. Zimbabwe has been living under a dictatorship for 35 years. Freedom of speech does not exist where I come from. So we would write plays, and you could bring people into a hall to be entertained. Our messages were in the story and in the music, and people would go home humming these political songs and get the message. So I was sponsored by World Health to write a play, and that was the beginning of my story, to educate people through theater. At the age of 19, I got involved in my first feature film called Cry Freedom with Denzel Washington. This film was about Steve Biko, a political activist who was like a Martin Luther King for Southern Africans. They killed him 20 minutes into the film, and I was very disappointed. He was my hero. And I realized that it was time for African people to tell their own stories. And I vowed at the age of 19 that I would be a filmmaker someday, had no idea how I was going to do it, but I'll share what's been my journey. I left Zimbabwe in 2001 because of these 3 children. In 1999, our medicine men started spreading a rumor that if you rape a virgin, it cures AIDS. The incidence of child abuse in Southern Africa went up overnight. So I moved to New Zealand. I have 3 children. This is how old they were when I left. They are now 27, 25, and 19. In New Zealand, I became a serial entrepreneur, started off with my first business, which was a design business, making hand-painted caftans and clothing. I worked as a systems analyst, but these are some of my designs and jewelry. and hand-painted textiles. I opened a small shop after working as a systems analyst for a year, so I'm a first-generation coder. I coded in zeros and ones when computers were starting back in the 80s. But when I got to New Zealand, I wanted to look after my children and became an entrepreneur, opened the small shop, made no money except by exporting my work to the United States. My second business was created sitting in that shop, bored stiff, with no customers. My husband was a doctor, and when my husband was job hunting, I saw hundreds of vacancies online for doctors to come to New Zealand and Australia, created Medical Recruiters of New Zealand, and ran this company for 13 years. Went down with a recession, unfortunately. But my life changed in 2004. Oprah went to South Africa. I was having Christmas lunch. My parents had come from Zimbabwe for the first time. And somebody said, Getrude, switch on the TV, Oprah's in South Africa. And she stood on that soccer pitch full of children. She had 50,000 HIV orphans that Christmas. And there was a point in this show where she opened up her hands and she said, this is the lost generation of Africa. These are kids who will never get to go to school. They've lost one parent or both. Africa needs help. And I sat with my mother and I said, let's do a head count. How many orphaned kids are in our family? My grandmother had 11 children. She had 34 grandchildren. 19 of my first cousins have died of HIV-related diseases, including my youngest brother. So there's 49 orphaned kids on my side of the family, another 40 on my husband's side. So I decided to do something about it. Zimbabwe's population is 14 million, but 1.1 million of Zimbabweans are HIV orphans. The life expectancy of a Zimbabwean female in 2016 is 35 years. There are 17 million HIV orphans on the continent. So I started by writing a book called Born on the Continent, Ubuntu. The Ubuntu philosophy says a person is only a person through other people. I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for Yuka putting my name forward for this, so thank you for doing this. Yuka heard my story. He believes in what I'm trying to do in Africa, and I've been working with him in New Mexico. And this book took on a life of its own. When Peter Jackson was filming Lord of the Rings, I went to all of his presentations. I will not lie to you. I stalked the man. I followed him wherever he was. And one day I went to a presentation when one of his staff was talking about how they made the film. And I plucked up the courage to put up my hand and ask if I could act in the next film, which was King Kong. When I went in for my wardrobe fitting, they gave me 2 parts, and I said, why? Am I that good in acting? They said, no, Getrude, we need 350 African extras for one scene. And I realized it was a business. And I said, if I come up with 350 people, can I present it to you as a business case? They said yes. So I went all over Wellington with a digital camera, hitting on anyone brown. I stopped Indian people, Maori people. They had to spray paint us one color so we looked like a tribe. And I created a database that I sold to Peter Jackson's team, and I supplied all the ethnic extras for Lord of the Rings and Avatar, and took part in both films. I went back to school to become a filmmaker so I could tell my story from African eyes and the impact that this virus has had on us. I have a project in Zimbabwe that I took over this small little primary school. This is my son. He was 11 years old when we started this project. The children in the queue are kids of his age group. The average Zimbabwean in 2016 exists on 30 US cents a month. Malnutrition is our biggest problem. It costs $5 to send a child to school. Children are not going to school because they've lost one parent or both. We have households run by children aged 8, and they look after siblings. So we started this feeding program to make sure that the kids got something to eat. This is my baby brother, and this is who the story is about that I'm working on right now. I was 13 years old when my brother was born. My mother would put him on my back and I would care for him. And he died of AIDS in March 2009. He was diagnosed in December and he died March the next year. So he gave me this story. And he asked me to help other people who are affected. So HIV is a psychological disease. It's more psychological than physical. Thousands of people are being diagnosed positive. There is no psychological support. You go home with your problem. So it's a story that we've been sold that if you're HIV positive, you're going to die. It's like cancer. If you talk to cancer survivors, it's something in their mindset that makes them believe they can overcome it. So in the writing of my script, I want to inspire people who are affected by the virus to find a way to live positively with this disease until a cure is found. This is my school in Zimbabwe. Infrastructure is a huge problem, so I'm rebuilding a library. The Zimbabwean government has blocked me from building a clinic in my community. We did not vote for the regime in the last elections, so we've been cut off from the drugs. They're available for free 40 kilometers away. People don't have $2 to get on that bus every end of the month to get the free drugs 40 kilometers away. So I collected books through the Rotary Club in New Zealand. I'm a Rotarian. If anybody's a Rotarian, please put up your hand. Please connect with me at the end. And I gave presentations in primary schools and told the principals to tell the children to bring any books they don't want. And literally in 90 days, I collected 65,000 books and 300 computers and filled a 40-foot container. That is my Trojan horse. When the container is shipped to our village, so I'm trying to raise money to get it there. This is why I'm connecting with Rotarians or anybody else who wants to help. We will refurbish this container into the first health clinic in my community. So that's a project I'm working on at home. So my movie is winning 8 Oscars. When I wrote my book, I woke up in the middle of a dream 15 years ago, and the dream was of my funeral. And I was watching them, putting my body into the ground, and somebody was reading my eulogy. So if you buy my book on Amazon or from my website, you are sponsoring 7 kids to go to school, so buy it from my website, please. I wrote everything down that was in that dream. I wrote that I would start a foundation that would reach the 17 million children on the continent, and I have found a blueprint that can be replicated throughout Africa with my work. I am writing, directing, producing the screenplay. I am the next Rocky. And when I moved to the United States in December last year, I was going to California to make this film. A friend of Yuka's invited me to come and speak for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I stopped on the 4th of December, and I haven't left New Mexico since. And at the time, it didn't make sense. I kept thinking, why did God put me in the second poorest state in the United States? But magic happened when I met Yuka, because he gave me a job working for him, writing all the SEO content for his clients, so I could finish writing my script. We've now been working on several projects in New Mexico, and one of the main projects we're working on now is to impact on the Native American Indians. We're working with the Navajo tribe. And we are creating the first production center where we train people on how to become web developers. We've teamed up with an NGO that will give them the computers and the training, and we're bringing in the business clients. So if you need websites done, please come to us. We're going to be the first US company you can outsource to on Indian prices. So I'm really excited to be a part of that. So I created a social revolution by teaching other people to write their own books. And I have a process called How to Write a Book in 40 Hours. So if anybody has a book in them, please see me. I can show you how to do it really fast. So I've been impacted by a number of people since I came to this conference. Nat, where are you? You gave me a crash course in Twitter. I have about 200 followers since this afternoon. Thank you for that. There are people in this room who can teach you something if you ask. One conversation turned into a following of 200 people in the last few hours. Stefano and Carmen, where are you? I can't see you. There you are. So when we met yesterday, I told them this vision. And they said to me, Getrude, let's take a picture. We need a photograph because when you win your Oscars, we want to say that we met you before it was done. So thank you for believing in my vision and in my dream. Bertie, I feel like I know you. Because when I joined Yuska's team, he talked about you every single day. He told me there was a man called Tom Kuti who taught him everything he knows about Essie. There are people in this organization who impart knowledge. Please find mentors, find coaches. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. A lot of you are starting new businesses. This is a very unique organization. I have never seen anything like it before. Your mentors are in this room. Make sure you listen. Make sure you ask for help. This is a magical organization that we've joined. To the Africans in the room, I have to stop speaking now. Who is from Africa or has a passion for Africa? I need your help. I need your help. I need people who are in the diaspora to come back home and help support in the work that I'm doing. So I would love to exchange business cards with you before we leave. And Michael and your team, thank you so much for this opportunity for me to present tonight. Thank you.